The stars were silent. The black sea of space stretched forever, cold and empty. On the edge of that sea floated a lonely station, forgotten by most humans, kept alive only by machines and one man. His name was Daniel Ward. He was not a hero, not a soldier, not a great explorer. He was only a maintenance worker. His job was to check wires, clean filters, and keep the station from falling apart. Day after day, he moved through the metal halls, listening only to the hum of old engines. Sometimes he talked to himself just to hear a voice. He knew no one was listening, or so he thought. One night, when the station drifted in the shadow of a dead moon, Daniel heard something strange. It was not a sound that came through his ears. It was something else, a whisper inside his mind. Mother. He froze. His hands dropped the wrench he was holding. The tool hit the floor with a sharp clang, echoing through the empty hall. He looked around. Nothing. Only the silent machines blinked their lights. Then it came again. Mother, help me. Daniel's skin turned cold. He rubbed his temples. Maybe it was stress, or maybe he was finally going mad. Loneliness did that to people. But the voice did not stop. It was soft, trembling, the voice of a child. He whispered into the air even though he felt foolish. Who's there? No answer, only the same cry filled with fear. Please. I'm alone. Daniel's heart raced. He was a man who believed in logic, in machines, in things he could touch and fix. Ghosts and spirits were for old stories, not space stations. And yet here he was, standing in the middle of a silent corridor with a voice echoing inside his head. He tried to ignore it. He went back to his work, tightening bolts, checking pressure lines. But the whisper followed him. Every time he blinked, every time the lights flickered, the child's voice came back. Mother, please. Finally, Daniel sat in the control room. He stared at the stars outside the window. The Earth was far away, a blue dot he could hardly see. He tapped the console and opened the communication channel. Static filled the air. This is Station Echo 9, he said. I'm receiving something. Is anyone out there? Only static answered. The whisper returned, sharper this time. You hear me? Only you. Daniel's chest tightened. Why only him? Why would a strange voice drifting through the endless dark choose him of all people? He tried to sleep, but when he closed his eyes, he saw flashes. Not dreams, not his own thoughts. He saw a small shape, curled up in a cold pod, hands pressed against glass, eyes glowing faintly, wet with tears. He woke up gasping. No, he muttered. This can't be real. This isn't happening. But in the corner of his mind, the child spoke again. Find me, Mother. Please. Daniel paced the room. He thought of sending a report back to Earth. But what would he say? That a mysterious child was calling him through space? They would laugh. Or worse, they would pull him from duty, call him unstable, replace him with another lonely worker. Still, the voice would not let him go. It was not angry, not demanding. It was only desperate. The cry of someone lost, someone who had no one else. And in that desperation, Daniel felt something stir inside him. For years he had lived with silence. No family, no friends, no warm hand to hold. He had convinced himself that loneliness was his fate. But now, out there, someone was calling for him. The thought grew in his mind. What if it's real? What if a child is truly lost out there? What if I'm the only one who can hear her? The whisper turned into soft sobs. Daniel pressed his hands to his ears, but it made no difference. The sound was inside, not outside. All right, he said aloud, his voice shaking. I hear you. I'll find you. The sobbing stopped. For the first time, the voice spoke with a trace of hope. Thank you, Mother. Daniel sat back in his chair, his breath heavy. He was just an ordinary man, sitting in a broken station on the edge of nowhere. But now he was tied to something strange, something impossible. A call from the dark had chosen him, and he could not escape it. The next day began like every other day on Station Echo 9. The lights flickered awake. The machines hummed, and Daniel Ward rose from his bunk, shoulders stiff from another restless night. He had hardly slept. The whisper of the child still lived in his mind, clinging to him like a shadow. For years, the station had been his prison and his home. It was not a proud place. Echo 9 was an old shell, built before better stations took its role. Most humans had forgotten it existed. Daniel had been sent here because no one else wanted the job. He was a caretaker of a dead relic, a man abandoned by the world. The halls were narrow, the walls gray and tired. Pipes hissed softly as if sighing with age. Screens blinked weakly, showing lines of data only Daniel cared about. Sometimes he wondered if even Earth remembered him. He was a name on a list, a worker in the dark, out of sight, out of mind. Loneliness had become his closest companion. He ate alone, worked alone, and spoke only to machines. Once he had tried to give them names. The broken cleaning bot he had called Rusty. The supply drone he had called Buzz. But machines could not smile back, could not laugh, could not whisper, "Please help me." Now, for the first time in years, he felt less alone. As he moved through the station, Daniel heard the faint voice again. "Are you still there?" He stopped in the corridor. His heart quickened. "Yes," he whispered. "I hear you." The voice sighed, weak but relieved. "I thought you left me." Daniel's throat tightened. He had no children. He had never been called father, let alone mother. Yet this alien child clung to him with that word. It was strange, unsettling, and yet it warmed something deep inside him that had long been cold. "Where are you?" he asked, but the child's answer was only a confused murmur. "Dark, cold, empty, please, hurry." Daniel sat in the control chair, staring at the map of stars on the main screen. Millions of points shown, endless possibilities. He zoomed in on sectors near Echo 9, searching for anomalies. Nothing unusual. But then again, nothing about this was ordinary. He thought of calling Earth Command. They would dismiss him. They would laugh, then silence his channel. No, this was between him and the voice. The days dragged slowly. Daniel still repaired engines, cleaned ducts, and checked water supplies. But everything felt different now. Every task, every sound of the station was marked by that hidden presence. The child never spoke long, only small bursts of words, but always enough to remind him she was still out there. Sometimes he wondered if the voice was only his mind breaking. Loneliness could twist thoughts into ghosts, but then the child would say something so raw, so alive, that he knew it could not be his imagination. One evening, as he watched the stars through the glass window, the child whispered again. "It hurts." Daniel leaned forward, gripping the chair. "What hurts?" "The cold. The silence. I'm so tired." He pressed his forehead against the glass. Beyond it, space stretched endlessly, cruel and empty. How could a small child survive in that? How could she reach his mind across such distance? None of it made sense. And yet he felt her pain as if it were real, as if it were his own. "Hold on," he said firmly. "I'll find you. I promise." For a moment there was no reply. Then a soft whisper came, full of fragile trust. "I believe you." Daniel sat there long after the voice faded, his heart heavy with responsibility. No one had ever needed him before, not truly. He had lived a life of forgotten duties and ignored reports. But now, somewhere out there, a child was waiting only for him. The station around him seemed even more empty now. The metal walls felt colder, the silence louder. Every shadow in the corridor reminded him of her, alone in the dark. As he drifted through his routine, Daniel began to notice small things he had ignored before. The hum of engines sounded like a lullaby, the flicker of the lights like a heartbeat. Echo 9 was not just a station anymore. It was a cocoon, preparing him for something greater. Yet fear gnawed at him. If the child was real, then others might know of her too. And not all would come with kindness. He had seen what humans did when they discovered something new, something alien. They studied it, caged it, sometimes destroyed it. Daniel clenched his fists. He would not let that happen. Not to her. Night came again. He lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling, when the voice whispered one last time before sleep took him. "Don't leave me, Mother." He closed his eyes, whispering back, "I won't." The station drifted silently through space. But Daniel Ward no longer felt like the loneliest man alive. Somewhere out there, a fragile voice had chosen him, and that choice had changed everything. Daniel Ward had lived in silence for so long that the voice of the child had become part of him. Days turned into nights, and still she whispered, "Always soft, always desperate, never gone, Mother. I'm here, please." Daniel's life, once empty, now had a strange purpose. He searched through the control screens, scanning nearby space for signals. The machines returned only numbers and static. Yet in his mind, her cry grew stronger, like a thread pulling him toward something unseen. One evening, as the station drifted along its orbit, the child's voice changed. It was no longer only a whisper. It was sharper, clearer, as if she was closer. "Here, here." Daniel leaned over the console, sweat on his forehead. Where? Show me. And then for the first time she gave him more. A picture, faint, broken but real, flashed inside his mind. He saw darkness. He saw a small glass window, frost creeping over it. And behind the glass, glowing eyes, round, wide, filled with fear. Daniel gasped, pulling back from the console. His hands trembled. It was no dream. The child was real. Somewhere, a small figure was trapped, waiting. He began to run scans again, narrowing the field, following the direction the vision had pointed. Hours passed. At last, one of the sensors caught a weak reading. A small object drifting in space, no beacon, no signal, almost invisible. His heart pounded. That has to be it. The station was not built for rescue missions, but Daniel didn't care. He powered up the old shuttle docked on the side of Echo 9. The engines coughed and groaned like an old beast waking from sleep. He climbed inside, hands shaking as he worked the controls. Hold on, he whispered as if the child could hear. I'm coming. The shuttle broke free of the station with a shudder. Daniel guided it toward the faint signal, his eyes never leaving the radar. Space was endless and black, but he could feel her out there, waiting. Minutes felt like hours. At last a shape appeared ahead. Small. Metallic. A pod, drifting silently. Daniel's breath caught. The glass window was frosted, but through it he saw movement. A small hand pressed weakly against the glass. Then the voice rang clear in his mind. You came. He brought the shuttle close and engaged the magnetic clamp. The pod locked into place with a heavy thud. Daniel rushed to the hatch, tools in hand. The pod was old, alien design. Strange symbols etched across its surface. He had never seen anything like it. The glass was cracked, the metal worn, but inside lay the child. She was small, no more than the size of a human 6-year-old. Her skin was pale, faintly glowing in the dim light. Her eyes, large, silver, and filled with tears, looked straight at him. She did not speak with her mouth. Her lips never moved, yet her voice rang inside his skull. Mother. Daniel's chest tightened. He was no one's mother, not even a father. And yet when she looked at him with those desperate eyes, he could not deny the word. I'm here, he whispered. You're safe now. With a hiss, he forced the hatch open. Cold air escaped, freezing his skin. He reached inside and gently lifted her out. She was lighter than he expected, fragile, trembling. She clung to him, tiny fingers gripping his sleeve. Her body was cold, her breathing shallow. Daniel wrapped her in his jacket, holding her close. She looked up at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. I knew you would come. Daniel swallowed hard, emotions swirling inside him. Who are you? He asked, but she only shook her head weakly. Don't leave me. Don't let them take me. Them? Daniel frowned, but before he could ask, the shuttle's alarm blared. A warning light flashed across the console. A ship had entered the sector. Daniel's heart sank. Someone else was here, and they were coming fast. He carried the child into the shuttle's seat, strapping her beside him. She clung to his arm, her voice trembling in his mind. Hide! Please, they will hurt me. Daniel looked at the radar. The approaching ship was large, heavily armed. Military design. His stomach turned cold. They weren't here to rescue. They were hunting. He tightened the straps, gripped the controls, and whispered to the child, Don't worry. I won't let them touch you. The shuttle engines roared to life. Daniel turned away from the sector, guiding the small craft back toward Echo 9. His mind raced. He had found her. He had made contact. But now he had also made enemies. The child leaned against him, her small body trembling, but her eyes never left his face. You are my only one, she whispered. And Daniel knew then that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just the caretaker of a dying station. He was now the protector of something far greater, a fragile life that the universe itself seemed eager to erase. The shuttle shuddered as Daniel Ward docked it back to Station Echo 9. The alarms had faded, but the memory of that large ship still pressed against his mind. Whoever they were not friends. They were hunters, and they were after the child now sitting quietly beside him. She was wrapped in his jacket, her small hands clutching the fabric like it was her only shield against the universe. Her silver eyes watched every move he made, glowing faintly in the dim cabin light. She had not spoken since they escaped, but her presence filled the silence. When Daniel unbuckled her seat, she reached instantly for his hand. Her touch was cold, trembling, but it carried a weight he could not ignore. He lifted her carefully, carrying her into the station. The station, once nothing but metal and shadows, felt different now. No longer a prison of loneliness, it had become a shelter. A place where two lives so different were bound together. Daniel laid the child on his bunk. The thin blanket looked too rough against her pale skin, so he tucked his jacket around her again. "You're safe," he whispered. "No one will take you from me." Her lips never moved, but her voice flowed into his mind. "Why? Why do you help me?" Daniel hesitated. He had no real answer. He could have ignored the call, could have let the pod drift until the stars swallowed it. But when she called him mother, something inside him broke open. Something he didn't know he still had. "Because you needed me," he said softly, "and I was here." The child blinked, her glowing eyes wet with tears. "Others, they hurt us. They wanted us gone. I ran, but I was too small." Her voice quivered with memories too heavy for someone so young. Daniel clenched his fists, anger burning quietly in his chest. Whoever had hunted her, whoever had left her to die alone in that frozen pod, would not find her again. Not while she had him. "What's your name?" he asked gently. For a moment she was silent. Then a single word slipped into his mind. "Leora." "Leora," Daniel repeated, testing the sound. It was strange, alien, yet beautiful. The child gave the faintest smile, the first he had seen from her. Days passed. The station came alive with new purpose. Daniel repaired old systems not just for survival, but for her. He adjusted the heating, built a small space for her to rest, even fixed a broken food dispenser so she could taste something warm. Leora watched everything with wide eyes, curious and cautious. She touched the walls as if listening to them, tilted her head at the sound of humming engines, and always stayed close to Daniel. At night, when he tried to rest, she would curl up near him, whispering softly into his mind, "You won't leave me." "Never," he answered every time. And he meant it, but there was something more. As the bond grew, Daniel noticed strange things. Sometimes when he thought of something strongly, a memory, a feeling, Leora would react. Once he thought about Earth, about oceans and skies he had not seen in years, and suddenly her eyes widened. Blue water, big sky. "I see it." Daniel froze. She was not only speaking into his mind, she could see into it. Their bond was deeper than words. He wondered how dangerous that might be. Yet he could not bring himself to push her away. The child trusted him fully, and in return he gave her all he had. Protection, comfort, a promise. But danger still lingered. Every time Daniel checked the scanners, he feared to see that military ship again. He did not know who they were or why they hunted children like Leora, but he knew they would return. One evening as he worked on the console, Leora approached quietly. She placed her small hand on his arm. Her voice filled his head, calm yet firm. "They will come. You must be ready." Daniel looked at her. She was still a child, fragile, scared. Yet her eyes carried wisdom as if she had seen more than he could imagine. "I'll be ready," he said. "For you." She leaned against him, and for the first time since she arrived, he felt peace. The bond between them was no longer fragile. It was unbreakable. But in the depths of space, shadows were moving. The hunters had not forgotten, and soon Echo 9 would no longer be silent. The station had never felt so alive, yet never so fragile. Daniel Ward moved through its narrow corridors with restless steps, fixing panels, sealing cracks, checking sensors. Every hum of the engines, every flicker of the lights carried new weight, because now it wasn't just his life the old station held together. It was Leora's too. She followed him everywhere, small and silent, silver eyes glowing in the dim light. She didn't speak often, but her thoughts brushed against his mind like whispers carried on the wind. Sometimes she showed him flashes, her memories, broken pieces of another world. Burning skies, towers crumbling, figures running in fear, and always the same shadow. The hunters. Daniel didn't know their names, didn't know their motives, but he felt their presence moving closer with each day. Leora had warned him. They will come, and she was right. One quiet shift as the stars drifted beyond the windows, the station's scanners screamed. A ship had entered the sector, large, fast, military design. The same kind he had seen before. Daniel's stomach dropped. His fingers flew over the console. The reading was sharp, deliberate. They weren't lost. They weren't passing through. They were coming straight for Echo 9. He turned to Leora. She stood in the doorway, her eyes wide but not surprised. "They've found me." Daniel's chest tightened. "Not while I'm here." He rushed to the emergency lockers, pulling out tools, old weapons left to rust, anything he could use. Echo 9 had no real defenses. It was never meant for war, but Daniel refused to surrender. The hunter's ship stopped just outside sensor range, silent but waiting. Then a voice crackled through the comms, cold and sharp. "This is Command Vessel Vera. Station Echo 9, prepare for inspection." Daniel's pulse thundered. He muted the channel, his jaw set. "Inspection? That's a lie." Leora's voice brushed his mind. "They want me. They always want me." Daniel looked at her, this fragile child who had chosen him. He felt anger burn in him like fire. No one would take her. Not now, not ever. The station lights flickered as the enemy ship sent out drones, small insect-like machines that glided through the dark. They latched onto Echo 9's hull, cutting their way inside. Daniel grabbed a plasma torch, his only working weapon. His hands shook, but his voice was steady. "Stay behind me." The first drone broke through, its red eye glowing. Daniel lunged, slamming the torch into its side. Sparks exploded, and the machine collapsed in smoke. Another crawled through, faster, sharper. Leora's eyes glowed brighter, and suddenly Daniel felt a pressure in his head, like a shout without sound. The drone froze mid-step, trembling violently, before crashing to the floor. Leora swayed weak, clutching the wall. "You did that?" Daniel gasped. She nodded, her voice faint. "But it hurts me. I cannot do it for long." Daniel caught her as she stumbled. "Then save your strength. Let me fight." The station became a battlefield. Metal halls rang with echoes of machines. Daniel fought like a man possessed, slamming drones with tools, frying circuits, sealing doors behind him. Every victory was small, every breath heavy, but he refused to stop. All the while, the hunter's ship loomed outside, watching, waiting. Between battles, Daniel guided Leora to the shuttle bay. "We can't hold them forever," he whispered. "We need to escape," but she shook her head weakly. "They will follow. Always. They never stop." Daniel clenched his fists. He wanted to scream, wanted to curse the universe for placing this burden on him. But when he looked at her, this fragile, trembling child, he found his strength again. "They'll follow us fine," he said, "but they'll never take you. Not while I'm breathing." Another wave of drones broke through, sharper, heavier. Daniel fought with everything he had, his arms burning, his lungs on fire. Each strike felt like it could be his last. At one point, a drone cornered Leora. She pressed back against the wall, eyes wide with terror. Daniel's heart stopped. "No," he roared, charging with the torch. The machine's blade swung down, but before it struck, Leora's voice erupted in his mind, stronger than ever. "Stop!" The drone froze mid-swing, its body shattering like glass. Daniel caught Leora as she collapsed, her strength spent. Her small body shook in his arms. "I can't lose you," he whispered. "You hear me?" "I won't," the alarm screamed louder. The hunter's ship was moving closer. They weren't waiting anymore. They were coming in full force. Daniel carried Leora back to the shuttle, strapping her in tight. His hands were trembling, his chest aching, but his eyes burned with fire. "You said they'll never stop," he told her. "Then neither will I." The engines roared to life. The shuttle lifted, breaking free from Echo 9. Behind them, the station groaned, battered and scarred. It had been his home, his prison, and his refuge. Now it was nothing but a shell. Daniel gripped the controls, eyes locked on the stars ahead. The hunter's ship turned to follow, its weapons charging. The chase had begun. And Daniel Ward, once the loneliest man in space, was now a protector, a fighter, a shield between one child and the dark. The shuttle shook violently as Daniel Ward forced it away from Station Echo 9. The old station was falling apart, pieces of broken metal drifting into space like dying sparks. Behind them, the hunter's ship loomed large, its hull sharp and black against the stars. Lights flickered across its surface, Predator's eyes locking on prey. Daniel gripped the controls with white knuckles. Sweat ran down his forehead, but his gaze was steady. He had never been a soldier, never trained for combat. He was just a maintenance worker. But now survival was all that mattered. Beside him, strapped into the seat, Leora stirred. Her silver eyes opened weakly, glowing faint in the cabin light. She was pale, her breath shallow, but still her small voice reached into his mind. "They are close. They will not let me go." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Let them try." The shuttle's engines screamed as he pushed them to their limit. Old metal rattled, threatening to tear apart. Warnings flashed red across the console, but he ignored them. Speed was their only chance. The hunter's ship launched drones, sleek machines that shot forward like arrows of light. Daniel swerved hard, the shuttle groaning under the strain. Laser fire streaked past, glowing red against the darkness. He had no real weapons, only the shuttle's old mining tools. But Daniel was clever. He knew machines, knew how to twist them, how to make them do more than they were built for. He flipped a switch, releasing a burst of raw debris from the cargo bay. Broken pipes, scrap metal, shattered panels. The drones flew straight into the cloud, their sensors blinded. Two exploded instantly, torn apart by sharp fragments. Daniel let out a shaky breath. That bought us a little time, but only a little. The hunter's ship was faster, heavier. It closed the distance with steady hunger. Daniel guided the shuttle into an asteroid field, weaving between giant rocks, drifting endlessly. The hunters followed. The shuttle jolted left, then right, scraping the edge of a stone cliff. Sparks flew across the cockpit. Leora clutched the seat, her eyes wide, but she did not cry. She only whispered, "They always follow. Always." Daniel's teeth ground together. "Then we'll make them regret it." He cut the engines, letting the shuttle drift silently among the rocks. The hunter's drones shot past, scanning wildly. Daniel waited, holding his breath. When the timing was right, he reignited the thrusters, spinning the shuttle behind one of the larger asteroids. The drones overshot, confused. Daniel grinned tightly. "You want to hunt? Let's see how you like being blind," but the victory was brief. The hunter's ship fired a massive beam, slicing through the asteroid field. Rocks shattered, fragments spinning everywhere. The shuttle shook, alarms shrieking. Leora cried out, clutching her head. Daniel reached across, steadying her hand. "Stay with me." Her voice trembled in his mind. "I can help, just hold me." He gripped her hand tightly. In that instant, something strange happened. His mind filled with clarity. The shuttle's sensors sharpened. His reflexes quickened as if Leora's strength flowed into him. He saw paths through the asteroids before they appeared, guiding the shuttle like instinct. Together, they moved as one. The shuttle dodged beams, slipped through cracks, and twisted through chaos like it had never done before. But the effort drained Leora. Her head drooped, sweat glistening on her glowing skin. Daniel's heart ached. She was giving him everything she had just to survive. "Enough," he whispered, pulling her hand to his chest. "Rest, I'll finish this." The asteroid field was breaking apart. Soon there would be no cover left. Daniel spotted a narrow rift between two massive stones, a tunnel just wide enough for the shuttle. The hunter's ship was too large to follow. It was his only chance. He slammed the thrusters, the shuttle diving into the rift. Metal scraped against stone, sparks flying like fire. Warning alarms screamed in his ears, but he pressed on. Behind him, the hunters fired blindly, beams slicing the rocks but missing their prey. The shuttle burst out the other side, spinning into open space. Silence. Daniel's chest heaved, every muscle burning. He checked the sensors. The hunter's ship was still on the far side of the asteroid wall. They were trapped, at least for now. He sagged back into his seat, closing his eyes for a moment. "We made it." Beside him, Leora opened her eyes. They glowed faintly, filled with fragile relief. "You saved me again." Daniel looked at her, his heart heavy yet fierce. "I'll always save you." She reached her small hand toward his, and when he took it, a warmth spread through him. Not just survival. Not just protection. Something deeper. A bond forged in fire and fear, stronger than steel. But Daniel knew the truth. This was not the end. The hunters had lost the chase, but they would return. They would never stop, and when they did, he would be ready. The stars stretched endlessly before them. Daniel Ward guided the shuttle through the silent dark, its old engines whispering like tired lungs. Behind him, the hunters were gone, blocked by the asteroid wall. For the first time in days, there was no pursuit, no alarms, no fire, only silence. Beside him, Leora lay curled in her seat, wrapped in his jacket. Her silver eyes opened weakly, soft light glowing in the dim cabin. She was alive but fragile. Too fragile. Daniel checked the shuttle's fuel. It was low. Supplies low, weapons gone. He had nothing left but a promise. Ahead, a beacon blinked faintly. A human colony station. A place with food, medicine, people, safety, but also danger. Daniel's heart twisted as he stared at the blinking light. If he brought Leora there, they would see her for what she was, Not a child, not someone to protect, but an alien. A specimen, a weapon. They would take her from him. Lock her away. Study her until she was nothing. He looked at her small frame, trembling with exhaustion. She trusted him completely. She had no one else. You are my only one. Her voice whispered inside his mind. Faint, but steady. Daniel leaned back, eyes heavy. Once he had been the loneliest man in the universe. Now he was more than that. He was protector. He was father. He was the last barrier between her and the darkness. But could he keep her safe alone? The shuttle drifted closer to the colony beacon. Daniel imagined stepping inside the airlock, handing her over, hearing officials promise, "We'll take care of her." But he had seen how humans treated the unknown. He had seen fear twist into cruelty. No promise could erase that. He turned to Leora. "If we go there, they'll take you away. You won't be with me anymore." Her glowing eyes filled with tears. She reached for his hand, her small fingers cold but firm. "Don't let them, please. I don't want them. I want you." Daniel's throat tightened. He could not answer. His heart already knew the truth. The shuttle console beeped, demanding a decision: dock with the colony or drift past into the endless dark. Two paths. One meant safety, but also loss. The other meant danger, but togetherness. He closed his eyes, remembering the moment he first heard her voice. "Mother, help me." The whisper that broke his silence, the call that gave him purpose. If he gave her up now, what was all of it for? Daniel's hand hovered over the console. Then slowly he switched off the docking request. The shuttle turned away from the colony beacon. Leora gasped, her tears shining brighter than her eyes. "You chose me." Daniel pulled her close, his voice rough but steady. "Always." The stars ahead were endless, the road uncertain. But in that moment, Daniel knew. He would rather fight the whole universe than let her be taken. The shuttle slipped into the dark, small and fragile, but carrying something more powerful than any weapon, a bond unbreakable. Behind them, the colony station faded into silence. Ahead of them, the hunters would surely return. The danger was far from over, but Daniel no longer felt fear. He felt resolve. The loneliest man in space was lonely no more. He had a child now, not by blood, not by species, but by choice. And he would protect her until his last breath.